a big point I want to make about removing the clot, and this goes down to the actual technology of the tubes themselves, what the tubes are doing. So remember, the surface of this tube is designed to attract the platelets so they can stick to it and initiate the clotting. That's why it's a hydrophilic tube, right? Now, what that means is if I take off the lid of this tube, I get my tissue forceps, I grab the clot and I pull it off. If I don't detach that clot from the walls, I'm gonna rip that clot out. So you do not want to rip your clots, you want to keep them intact. So what I do is I get this stuff ready, right? Take the lid off of it. Okay, have that ready. Then in this kit that you get when you order the centrifuge kit, you get this set of instruments. You use this thinner instrument like this kind of oval, to detach that PRF clot. So I kind of push it against the back wall of the tube like this, go all the way down, right to the red, and just gently twist it around. When you see the whole clot start to freely move in there, that means you can now detach it, okay? And I take my tissue forceps, I take my scissors, I'm going to grab that PRF clot and pull it off. Now you want to cut it right where it gets very red. You see how it's a light red area and then it gets really dark red? You want to cut it right where it gets dark red, right there. You see how there's a little tail end that's still some red? Perfectly fine, okay? Remember, that's a lot of good healing factors in that layer right there. Now, someone asked, can I use the liquid that's left in that tube to make my sticky bone? No. All that's left in here is red cells and some water. All the good healing factors of the PRF are in that clot. Okay, so there's no reason why I would use this anymore. That's pretty much, it's done.
How about after you press it, you use liquid from that doesn't have any good stuff either?
No, because think about all this little device is doing is just compressing the excess water to allow me to use it in different ways, the PRF. But all my healing factors are contained in that little clot. So that liquid at the end is just water, okay? We're gonna do the same thing with this other one. We're gonna go ahead and detach the clot. So I take my instrument, just go around, see it freely moving, it's good to go. Then I take my forceps, pull it off, right at the red, right where that dark red starts, cut it right there. See, this one has a little bit more of a tail, it's okay. I could have cut a little less, but it's fine. You know, a lot of people seem to be afraid of having red in the membranes. Then you take the lid, it's weighted so that it pushes out the excess water. And you close it like that, take the other lid and put that on top. Now, if you wanted to make PRF plugs for simple extractions like wisdom teeth, instead of putting them here, I will put them in here. And then take this little metal weight and use that to push the excess water so it becomes more of a cylindrical shape, and then I end up with PRF plugs. Okay?
How long do you press them for? Just for a short period of time, or do you leave the weight on it?
That's a good question. So the protocol sheet will tell you 2 minutes. Now, 2 minutes sounds like a long time. You don't need that long. Okay. I usually only have them there for like 30 seconds. And the way I do that to make sure that they're nice and flat, I actually take my hand and I gently push down to make sure I get the excess water out. A few seconds. Once it's done, I take it off. I make sure this is nice and flat. I make sure I push down a little more, maybe even a little bit. And then take that off, and they're flattened out. Okay? You don't have to wait too long. And now, people ask, does this process damage the cells in the clot at all? I'm like, no, it doesn't do anything to the cells themselves. They're all encompassed in that little fiber in there, okay? So it's just taking excess water.
What if you don't do that step? What happens?
Then you're gonna have a very watery kind of PRF. And then you're gonna have to put a lot of bone to get all that liquid out. You're gonna have to use some gauze. So it just makes it easier to work. Okay, now I can take off one of those membranes. I usually look for the biggest one, so it's this one. I put it in my little bowl, and I'm going to chop it up to make my sticky bone, okay? Now, the PRF does not determine how much sticky bone I'm gonna get. How much bone I put determines how much sticky bone I'm gonna get, okay? So I only use one, and you're gonna chop it up nice and chopped up. All this is doing is creating those little pieces of fiber so that they're all encompassed in the sticky bone. This is actually gonna help create a better clot. This is what gives my sticky bone that putty consistency.
And then you use the other one as a membrane.
Exactly. Now,
Don't you
not
have to
my,
heat that?
not my initial membrane, my heated membrane is right there. That, so this is a little bit of more advanced once you guys start doing. So what we were doing in our office with Dr. Estrenis, we will take the sticky bone, put it in the socket, then we'll make a extended membrane, cut a little piece, put that on top, suture it, mattress suture style. You never want to suture through it, you want to suture over it, and just let it go. So what we notice with that is when you think about the science of this, so this is slowly, takes 4 months to break down. So slowly releasing healing factors. So what we were seeing is that at the 2-week mark, the tissue was not fully closed yet. It was still open. So we didn't like that because we actually saw a couple cases where being exposed longer to the oral cavity, some of the membranes actually got washed away. So then when we opened the tissue up, there was a lot of gum ingrowth. So we didn't like that. So how do we eliminate that issue? Is after we put the extended membrane, we will use one of the PRF membranes to put on top of that. These don't hold in the body for too long, only 2 weeks, but they're great at soft tissue healing. So these, at the 2-week mark, by just adding that extra membrane there, it was completely closed. So now, that's the standard in which we do that. Sticky bone, extended membrane, solid PRF membrane. Suture all over, good to go.
So you only need heat to make the extended and the fillers.
Yes,
Okay. And you need the cool just to.
to maintain the liquid longer.
Well, like for the extended collagen, you don't use that. You want to get a membrane from PRF that lasts 4 months, right? So that's what's cooking. I mean, that's
Yes,
what's
it's heating up right now.
So you don't need the Buffy coat for that membrane.
I'm gonna show you how I add my cells
okay,
at the
yeah,
end.
yeah,
Yeah. So now look, I have my bone particles. I chopped up my PRF. I'm gonna add that on to here. As much as you need. Remember, depending how much you're grafting, that's how much you put in there. I'm not gonna put too much because I don't want to waste it. So if any of you wants to practice making that, you have enough bone to practice.
You can use any type of bone.
Yeah, we prefer the allograft and the corticocancellous mix, but you could. Now look, now that you have your particles there, all I do is I take my spatula and I'm just gonna mix all that up. There was a little bit of excess liquid there, which is perfect because now instead of hydrating my bone with saline, I'm just mixing it in there and hydrating it with the same PRF that's there. Okay, once you get all encompassed like this, I kind of just pile it up in one corner of the bowl. Just like so. That's why it looks like sushi, because we pile it up like that. Right? Then get some of those pieces out there. Okay. Now that will not clot. That won't make my sticky bone yet. To make the sticky bone, I have to take a syringe. All right. See how I have two blue tubes open? Remember that one that we drew the top layer and we left the buffy coat?
So
The
now
buffy
use
coat is still intact in there. All my cells are in there. So now I go back in, open that off. Now I need it to clot right away, so I don't mind if oxygen gets introduced to it. I take my syringe, and you're gonna go down to that buffy coat area. Now, you want the tip of that needle touching the red zone, okay? It's gonna get a little bit of red, look. See how it's red? That's perfectly fine, okay? I got about a 1 cc and a half of liquid. Now I take that liquid and I'm gonna introduce that liquid into my graft. Just like so. Think of this liquid as the glue, the binder that makes the sticky bone, okay? Look at
And
that.
that's in the Buffy coat, right?
Yep, that's all my cells in there. So that's making rich in healing factors. That's making my graft rich in healing factors. So now I just kind of make everything mix into it. Now, if it's like, if you leave it like this, it will still clot, but I like to always leave a little bit more liquid. So I go back into this one. Still a little bit of PRF there. We're gonna draw a little more. I like to have, I call it a pond. I wanna have my PRF fully encompassed in there, okay? So then I take a little more liquid, I'm gonna add that in there. It's gonna be a little red because I ran out of liquid there. Okay, there you go. But make sure it's nice and covered. Leave it just like so. It's only been a few seconds, but if I move the whole thing, See how it moves together already? And it's only been a few seconds. It takes 2 minutes to set. So I'll leave it there for another few minutes, but it's already starting to climb. It works very, very fast. So if you're only using sticky bone, you could literally do this as the socket's open because it will take a few seconds to set.
And you want the